Okay, this is my book. My motivation for the book is, and I had a very blessed life. I had made my first money I was in kindergarten, grade one, because people would throw pop bottles away, and there was a ravine here sometimes they'd throw them down the ravine. If I climbed around the ravine, I could actually find 2 or 3 empty bottles and get a Coke and a chocolate bar for the 6 cents collect. So I've always been able to make money, and I've noticed kids here don't have the opportunity to make money. And Scientific American said we're having a crisis in science. By the time kids get to grade one, they're afraid of science, even though they've just spent their most scientific years of their life figuring out how it all works. So anyway, this book has a price of $125. And it's Welcome to the Universe, Cosmos, the Milky Way, first science book, grade 0 to 6.
$125 per book.
I should explain that, shouldn't I?
Okay, yes.
Okay, next page. Anyway, this book is a scholarship book. So, and the only church I can really sell it in right now is Unitarian Universalist. Our basic is thinkers. And our words, Unitarian Universe, are science words that represent science concepts. Anyway, so my idea is, especially Unitarian, your kids, by the time they're in grade one, they know, where they live, right? Street, house, address, country, they got that much information. Well, they should have a little bit more information. And they should at least know that they live in a planet that's part of a solar system, that's part of a galaxy, that's part of a cosmos, right? Not too much more to add. So being able to see the big picture. But the main thing you should know when you're in grade one is, and the first thing is, what are you? And the science word for what we are is psyche. And the psyche is that part of each thing that contains information. So basically, you are a psyche. So that's the beginning of your education. The next part of the book is part 2. So if you've passed that by grade one, there will be a scholarship. That's where the money is. So $15 of the kids learn the basic first part of science, introduction to science. The core of the book is grade 1 to 6. And basically it's based on it's science history theory. And about 2,500 years ago, Heraclitus, and I put a 10 after his name, he's one of the top 10 geniuses, gave to Socrates the first science theory. And he said, basically, this explains how it all got here, how it all works, and even why we're here. This is basically what the first science theory is. And it's basically based on 8 concepts, of which you already have the first 3, universe, cosmos, and psyche. And then you have to add a few more complex terms like conscient, spiros, and real, that's a good one. Anyway, understanding the theory is understanding the 8 concepts. These 8 concepts come together to create a theory, which was called being intelligent. The word intelligence, the root of it is in the story, no. So originally the Greeks said, if you know how this whole story works, you are considered intelligent, and you've actually started to become part of your actual name. We're Homo sapiens sapien, right? Well, that means the being that knows. No, we're the only being that's actually able to understand how we got here and how it all works. So I don't know what's on the next page. Next page. Oh, okay. All right, here in a nutshell is the original atomic theory. Plutarch gave me this. He said it's written in the oldest written science book, which is the Rig Veda. So it's 2,000 years old. But he said it comes from a much older science book. And here's the whole core of the theory. Before the cosmos, where we live now, there was either something or nothing. And if there was something before the cosmos, let's call it a prior energy form, which is where the word universe came from. It's two words, actually, a prior energy form. And that's the theory in a nutshell. So the question, the book will have some pass-fail questions. Like here's an interesting one. This is one of the pass-fail questions. The atomic theory, should you believe this? Well, the actual correct answer is in science you have no belief, right? So if you say you should believe something, you fail. So the essence of science, you have no belief. However, this is a trick question. That's why it's grade 9 plus level thinking. I say, should you believe this? Well, the interesting thing about this statement is it's actually a very logical statement. In other words, before the cosmos, there's only two options. There was either nothing or something. So this is actually a logical statement that you should actually accept as something to think about. So what's the next slide? Okay, now the crux of my talk today is, and this is a picture from Scientific American 2016, and it appeared in two versions. One, the visual version, and then it was in the top science stories of the year. So what this is a picture of, this is the most important thing produced by science in the 21st century. And this is actually, for the first time, we actually have a map of where we live. We live in a supercluster called Laniakea, and there's 12 superclusters that make up the cosmos, but the basic unit of a cosmos is a supercluster. And in our supercluster, shows a map, the Milky Way is right there. Now, the interesting thing about living in this supercluster, well, basically, now we know where we live. So this is our first map of where we live. This article and this picture says far more than modern science is willing to tell you or admit. The article itself talks about the fact is we live in the cosmos, the galaxy, the Milky Way, right? How are all these galaxies related to each other? Well, imagine you fill a bathtub with water and you throw in a bunch of galaxies. Are they all floating around randomly? No, there's actually one prime flow, and they talk about it. Visualize that in this bathtub, you threw all these galaxies. Then in the bathtub, you pull the plug. What happens? You get what Democritus first created. Everything's in a vortex flow, he said. A vortex flow is, it appears that all the galaxies in the cosmos are being sucked toward what they call, that's why I put the magnet in, maybe we do that. It looks like there's a force, and they actually say it. It appears there's a force pulling everything in one direction. So all the energy that's in this galaxy here is nothing compared to all the energy which is in what, if you know the atomic theory, an outside force, an AT1. What's the next slide? Okay, that's just describing. We'll go back to that slide. Anyway, this slide also tells you, are you ready for this? So it tells you how everything works, and that there's a vortex flow. It also is holographic. And holographic means each part contains the message in the whole. So we go back to the last slide. So this is also a picture of the very first moment of the cosmos when it was born, the Big Bang, when there was just one energy field. That's what it looked like. Now, the interesting thing is, this is a macroscopic picture, so this is also a picture on the big scale of what the universe looks like. So the universe is all these filaments, and it's giving birth to cosmoses. So it's a picture that actually tells the whole story of how we live and where we live. It's also, this is an interesting one, the flow of neurons in the brain appears to be the same as the flow of neurons in the galaxy, which makes sense. If the galaxy is being sucked in a vortex motion, your neurons in your brain are working in the same way. And in New Scientist, one of the physicists said, yes, the equation for the flow of energy in your brain is identical to the flow of energy in the cosmos, because they're all influenced by this larger energy fluid. I'll read a couple of statements. In 2017, it was a similarity between human brain and cosmic network galaxies. Popular Mechanics, just a couple of months ago, is mind somehow connected to the greater universe? Scientists are starting to think so. An interesting quote when I was born in 1950 was Stromberg and Einstein. Stromberg and Einstein were good friends. Stromberg was a famous Swedish astronomer. And they said, we conclude conscious mind is an offshoot of a mind of universe. In other words, the idea that the mind is influenced by a larger energy thing is not new. It's just new to the modern science, and they like to think therapy the be all and end all. Anyway, one of the things I want to bring out, I'm reading an article in Scientific American pointing out all those things that this graph is, but I want to point out the state of 21st century science, and I got a book written. I'll start recording now. Anyway, one of my books is called The History of Idiocy, Homo sapiens sapiens, and one of the great eras is in the 21st century. And let's look at how 21st century science is saying this. The first thing they're going to tell you is there is no outside the Big Bang. So this outside, that's a statement. There is no before the Big Bang, there is no outside. That is the predominant theory, which is AT2, by the way, in modern science. So what is modern science doing? How do they explain all this energy being pulled that way? They invented something called a magic beam. They call it dark matter. And they said, we're going to throw all these magic beams in here. And the magic beams are little particles, and they're pushing apart the cosmos. Yeah. Now, I'm not arguing they have the right to that opinion. They just don't have the right to say it's the only opinion, which is their proper approach. And at this point, 30 years later, they'll all say, well, we haven't found these magic beams yet, but we just need to look harder, because they haven't allowed themselves to look outside at AT1, because that is a modern band theory. So anyway, my book here is kind of interesting. It's a 21st century science dictionary. And the way I got my hand on it is L. Brenner. It was around 2005. He said, Ray, I noticed you're having a lot of problems with understanding what modern science is saying. You need the modern science dictionary. So I get it, and I take it to him and I say, Al, do me a favor. Read me the definition of conscious. Opens up, looks at three, and he actually looked surprised. He said, conscious, it's not in the dictionary. They actually took the word conscious out of the science dictionary because they didn't like it. And the problem is, if you want to understand AT1, you actually knew the concept of consciousness. Most people would admit consciousness, by the way, is a verb. You don't need a definition. Consciousness is an experience. Consciousness is your psyche having an experience. It's a verb. No definitions required. So anyway, I discovered something really funny this morning. So now you need the word psyche to understand the theory, right? Guess what they took out of the dictionary? The word psyche is not in the dictionary. They took that one out too. But this book gives you an insight into their thinking because they have, yeah, that's good. Anyway, they have, they give biographies of important scientists. And all right. They give a big spread on the Ptolemaic system. Basically, for the last, until the last couple of hundred years, most people believe that the Earth was the center of the solar system and that the sun went around the Earth. That's called the Ptolemaic system. They've got a big write-up on the Ptolemaic system. The guy before Ptolemy, Anaxagoras, who was the first one to tell us that the Earth goes around the sun, that's called the heliocentric theory, not mentioned. And their agenda is science started in the last 100 or 200 years. Before that, we had philosophers like Thales, who predicted the first eclipse in 585 BCE. They said he had a lucky guess. So they acknowledge no science thinking before them. They are the essence of science. And that's the problem with the 21st century scientists. They're going to look like complete idiots into the history. What time is it?
10:56.
Pardon?
10:56.
Oh, okay, I should leave room for, anyway, basically, I'm gonna make this available. I've got a couple already for people that have kids and say I want them to enroll them and have them take the test and apply for the scholarship. So I'm gonna hopefully publish online. This is all just started. This is the germ of what I'm doing to actually introduce science to kids and to adults. Any questions?
Are you the one teaching this?
Yeah. Well, it's my book, and I'm going to do the pass-fail. In other words, you ready to take the test? Okay. I will print the questions, test questions ahead of time. Okay, I'll leave you with one last test question. This is the one, this is a funny one. This is the one even university science professors get wrong. And the question is, the heliocentric theory, the fact that the Earth goes around the sun, in science, is that a fact now?
Yes.
Is that a fact?
Yes.
Actually, even most science teachers, actually it isn't. Because the way science work is, it's the theory to explain how all things happen. So the heliocentric theory is called a closed theory. In other words, nobody's coming up with a better theory to explain what we're seeing. So it's closed theory. Science never establishes facts. It just presents you with options. So technically, it's just a closed theory. Nobody's arguing with it, so everybody's accepting it. But it's a closed theory, not a fact.
What's the difference between the closed theory and fact?
Well, when you say it's a fact, it's closed. Nobody's considering any other options. But in science, you don't close any possibility. You keep your mind open. That's what a scientist is. They've got somebody that has an open mind to all things. And the heliocentric theory obviously is a fact, but for science, it's not a fact. It's a closed theory. That's just science, the way science thinking is.
I have one more question.
Okay.
Since you're doing this in the Philippines, right?
So that what?
You're doing this in the Philippines.
Yeah.
Filipino children. Have you thought of how there are other like cultural and or religious perspectives that may differ from what you're presenting?
Yeah, that's why I said I could probably only do this in the Unitarian Church.
Ah, that's why.
No other church would allow this to be taught. And in fact, that's why none of you have ever heard any of this. This has been, guess what happened to Socrates when he published the theory? They killed It was last published by Servetus in 1600. Guess what happened to him? Not only did they kill him by burning him at the stake, the last copies of his book were all burned with him. This theory was lost. I couldn't go anywhere and find this theory. I had to figure it all out myself. And that's how I can present it. I was able to get all the parts and pieces. There's no one place you will find this theory written because anybody that does it has been killed historically. And the reason is, and you go back to Greece, and when they killed Socrates, they said the problem is we don't like your science. Your science seems a lot like our religion. And we can't have you competing with our religion. You're gone. Now, the root of the book, this is really interesting. The book actually began with a guy called Imhotep 5,000 years ago. He happens to be the guy that built the first pyramid. He's the one that broke the theory down. That's what I think. If Imhotep, it ended up in the Rig Veda, but the first, and the first pyramid, they say they have burial chambers in it. They're lying to you. There's never been any bodies found in the first two pyramids because they were built as direction finders. The pyramids are built and the shafts point to where certain constellations are when it was built. So it's actually built as an observatory, saying when this was built, I think the Lion constellation was right there because everything's going around. Anybody know what a precisional year is? If Ceres back then, when Imhotep kept alive, Ceres had just arisen on the horizon. Well, basically, all the stars are in a circular motion, and a precisional year is in 26,000 years, Ceres will be back in the same place. That's the precisional year. That was actually measured by somebody before Imhotep, believe it or not. Imhotep was probably the number one genius in history, but the guy before him, Horus, was even a bigger genius. So this is, and what happens is it looks like when a civilization is formed somewhere in the cosmos, and as I've said, there's billions of other cosmoses. When a civilization starts, it looks like what happens there is what happened to here. A guy comes along that actually understands the theory, writes it down and says, tell everybody, here's how it all works. And then all that civilization has to do is take this theory, tell everybody, here's how it all works. And do other things. No need for religion. Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
The most fascinating thing happened while I was there, and this next slide, I'll show it to you, but they were having a new holiday in Canada, and it's remembering that it's actually a national day of renunciation. And to lead into what this is, just before this happened, I had a very, I lost the notice of my father's funeral, and I finally, going through my stuff, I finally found his, and he died kind of around the age I'm at. And I learned something that was actually, I guess, the last message my father sent to me, and the poem he picked for his service was Crossing the Bar, which is kind of the stage I'm at. And that poem is famous. It's a Tennyson poem because the famous line is, I expect to meet my guide when I have crossed the bar. So it's talking about that stage in life where, you have to kind of make amends. And so I'm at the National Day of Reconciliation. And basically what it is, it's a chance for us white guys to say, we really apologize for the millions of indigenous people we killed around the world in the past 500 years. So I'm like, wow, this is a great holiday. I'm really into it. And that Holocaust really started in 1492 when Columbus landed in Hispaniola, which is a kind of Republican Haiti. he was greeted by the Taino who welcomed him and fed them, and Columbus described them as Indios. That's why they said he thought he was the Indian. He was actually describing the natives being so kind and generous. And a bit further wrote down, he wrote, "These will make excellent slaves." Within 2 generations, all the Taino are dead, 2 to 3 million. So this was the beginning of our apology tour as a white guy. It's mainly white guys. White women don't really carry the guilt that the white guy. Matter of fact, so the women, a big apology too, but that's another topic. So anyway, here's the funny part. So next slide, I look around. I'm the only white guy there.
Where was this?
Ottawa.
Ottawa.
Yeah. Anyway, I thought that was funny. I'm the token white guy at the worst thing. Okay. Anyway, that's my little bit of sharing. I swear, I'm the only white guy there. Anyway, next slide. Oh, I don't know if you remember, John North was here last year. That we got together in Ottawa, had a good time.
Was he part of your reunion?
Yeah, he didn't want to go to the National Reconciliation Holiday.